Are you someone that's been trying to grow your hair and have it grow thicker and longer? Well, let me share with you what I have been doing, and I have been seeing a huge difference in my hair. So I have been consuming every single morning collagen powder from Primal Kitchen. I get the chocolate. I also have tried vanilla, and they're both so yummy. There's a ton of other flavors too, but I love chocolate. So every morning I put together some hemp milk, a couple of scoops of the collagen powder. Sometimes I throw in some organic fruit in there. And that's it. That's my breakfast. And my hair has been growing, honestly, almost a little out of control. It's growing so fast. So if you want to check it out, check out their collagen powders. They're amazing and they just taste so good. Head over to Primal Kitchen, PrimalKitchen.com and put in the code MargaretR10 for 10% off of any collagen powder or actually anything on their website. Trust me, you're going to love how fast your hair grows. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast. My name is Margaret Romero. I'm a Columbia-trained functional medicine nurse practitioner, and here I uncover the truth behind chronic illness so that you can finally heal. I'm a women's health and hormone expert and love empowering women to finally live their life fully and powerfully through optimal health. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. And we are back for another week of the Sacred Medicine Podcast. Thank you all for coming back for another week. And this week, I had such a great conversation with Andrea Owen. And let me just tell you a little bit about her. She is an author, a podcaster, and a life coach. She also wrote a couple of books, and today we are talking about her third book. It's called Make Some Noise, Speak Your Mind and Own Your Strength, and it's coming out in August. So we had so much fun in this conversation. You have to take a listen. We talked everything about resilience, especially after 2020. I mean, come on. She just covers the topic beautifully. So we talk about resistance. We talk about why women have a hard time asking for what they want, right? It used to be so hard for me. And now I feel like I can have a voice. I do have a voice. I have finally found my voice after so many years, my gosh. And now I ask for what I want. But we talk about that. We talk about even finding new friends, new girlfriends, new friends to hang out with. Like, why is it so hard at our age to find new friends? I don't know if you experience that, but I do. I mean, well, definitely 2020, obviously no one was going out. Even meetup.com, which is something that I'm definitely a part of, hiking and meeting up in New York City. It was kind of happening, but I just really wasn't into meeting a huge group of people in 2020. So I need to venture and do that this summer for sure. But yet I am so looking forward to meeting up with my own girlfriends, next month and then traveling in August. So without further ado, on to the show. And we are back for another week of the Sacred Medicine Podcast. We have a new guest today, Andrea Owen. Thank you so much for being here.
I am happy to be here, Margaret. Thanks for having me.
So you just came out with a book, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's called Make Some Noise, Speak Your Mind, and Own Your Strength. And it's coming out August of this year. And it's got so many nuggets in there, and I don't even know where to start. But why don't we start with why you felt the need to write this book at this point in time?
Well, I have two previous books, and they're both around the topics of women's empowerment, and that's my passion. That's the work that I do in the world. And after For many women, 2016, 2017, 2018 were pivotal years for us, with the Me Too movement and many conversations coming out more in the mainstream when they've been happening amongst women's circles for a long time, just about our culture and how we are raised, how we are conditioned and socialized to, behave a certain way, to just accept certain things that a lot of women are not okay with. And it sort of kept tapping me on the shoulder. And I thought, well, Andrea, no, just stay in your lane. Just write about women's empowerment. But the very loud, intuitive voice was telling me this has everything to do with women's empowerment. Women's empowerment, in my opinion, is an act of rebellion. We are pushing up against societal pressures and, the proverbial box of conformity that many of us feel the whisper to break out of. And I just felt like it was time to talk about more or less the elephant in the room, and that is the culture that raised us.
I love that. Yes. And so you talk about, so how your book is there's a bunch of things that women need to stop doing and start doing. And so, and I love that. In each chapter, at the end of it, you sort of give, it's called the unlearning. And so, and I love that because it sort of kind of summarizes the chapter and like sort of what you can actually start doing or not doing. So why don't we talk about one of the things that you talk about here is building resilience. And I think in this time during, my gosh, 2020 and still what's going on now, how can a women build that resistance? Because I think a lot of us have gone through like, oh my gosh, what's next, or things that they experienced during 2020, or the loss of family or friends. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think doesn't get talked about enough in terms of what does it actually look like? How can we build resilience on the other side? And I don't know about you, but I feel like, as I sort of turned a corner in midlife, I turned 46 this year, and I do feel like now I've started to slow down a little bit. And I don't mean to be super cliche, but I will for a second. And you might appreciate this, but I feel like I'm stepping more into my quote unquote wise woman and slowing down to hear the lessons that my intuition is telling me, that the women who have come before me are telling me. And all that to say, resilience is one of the things that just sort of comes with getting older. And I felt like, okay, well, what does it actually look like? And one of the things that I'll point to is allowing people to witness you, and more specifically, allowing people to witness your darkness and sometimes your shadow side. And I remember when I was going through a really difficult time in my life about 14 or so years ago, and I had some very well-meaning friends and some family saying, I don't know if I would have been able to walk through what you're going through. Or they'd say, I don't know how you're getting out of bed every day. This is so incredibly painful and awful that you're going through. And that would make me angry in some ways. And I got so exhausted from those types of, platitudes almost. And again, I know that they loved me and were doing their best to support me. But what I really wanted someone to say is to look me in the face and say, this has got to suck so bad. I imagine that what you are going through has got to be one of the hardest times of your entire life. And I see you in all of that pain and agony. That, and just quiet. No need to fix it. No need to tell me how strong I was, because I didn't feel strong when I was in the weeds of it.
Sure.
And that's just an example of how in my experience, we build resilience by having a good support system. And this is not easy. It's not easy to have these amazing, especially these amazing friendships with the women in our lives. It's a lot easier, I feel like, when we're in high school or college and we have these built-in networks.
Sure.
But when we are, when we get a little bit older, for some women who choose to be mothers, it becomes our last priority. So Anyway, that's a very long way of saying one way to build better resilience is to have people that you can lean on and you let them love you and support you.
So true. But this is something else you talk about in the book is how to build friendships, because let me tell you, I just feel like as you get older, it's harder.
It is.
And
you're right.
And especially something deep and significant rather than sort of like surface level friendships,
Right.
which are, okay too. But
those are good too. Yeah.
When you need to, have an ugly cry, you want someone that's going to be like, I feel like I'm a very strong woman, and it sounds like you are as well. And so whoever it is that's supporting me needs to be like match almost, well, for me at least, match my strength and where I feel like that they can sort of hold that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like they're 100%. Just there.
Yeah.
Without saying things like, well, at least this doesn't work for me. Like if you say things like, oh, you just mentioned something before that I actually wouldn't like, is that if someone says this really sucks, I don't, for some reason, it just doesn't resonate. When people say that, I feel like they're just like, oh yeah, that sucks. But you're not like, I need some depth. Like I need like really, really a strong, someone that just like solid, like a freaking rock in order to hold. Because if I'm crumbling, some shit's going down. Like, yeah, it's not, I don't normally, crumble. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm usually like, I'm good. Like I got this. And whatever, sometimes things even make me even stronger. So if I'm crumbling, that person's got to be like a powerhouse almost.
Yeah.
And so in order to find a friend like that, which I do, thank goodness, I do have girlfriends like that. But in order to get like even more of that, I don't know. I feel like that's hard to find.
It is. And I think we need to get better at, because you bring up such a great point in that, what works for me might not work for the next person, that we have to get better at having conversations with the friends that we have about what is supportive to us. And this is not easy. This is something that is learned. Sure. And, hard conversations are a skill that we must learn. And it's, oh man, okay. I have so many things to say. I learned this when my dad died in 2016. My father passed away, and I had never lost anyone before, from death. And I realized very quickly the things that people would say that would either make me angry, that would make me feel worse, that would make me feel othered, and I had to be very specific, especially with my husband, about what exactly I needed him to say. And, my 25-year-old self would have said, I just want him to know. It doesn't mean as much when I have to tell him. And now I'm like, okay, you're not a mind reader. It's not fair for me to just think that you're going to know exactly what it is to say. I need to tell you. It's similar to the love languages. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of that book or read it. We have to tell the people exactly how we want to be supported and loved, and ask them, like, how do you want to be supported and loved? Because it might not be the exact same thing for each person. And also I want to say, tone matters and delivery matters, because the way you said it felt dismissive. And I would not like that if someone said, well, this sucks, right. But, like, I want someone like and I'm talking about when I'm in the weeds, when I'm crumbling, as you said it, like I want someone to see how difficult it is for me, instead of trying to bypass it or say something like, well, at least you're still young enough to get remarried. Like I had people say that, and just, it all matters. And some people might say, well, you're kind of splitting hairs. Maybe it is, but this matters. Like if I'm going to split hairs about anything, it's going to be about my closest relationships and how we can show up for each other.
Yeah. Yes. Now, I will say that there is a difference when it comes to, let's say I'm crumbling and what I want my girlfriend's approach to be versus someone that I'm dating or my significant other. I think that I would go to a significant other not to solve anything, just to hear me
Mhm.
and then hold me and then I'm good. With my girlfriends, like the approach is different. Like they fulfill a need in me very different than a partner would be. I don't know if you feel the same way or not, but
100%. Yes,
yeah,
I do.
it's different.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so I love that. Tell me, share a few ways how, women, it is different. I'm not a mother. And so I'm not like in mom groups or have kids that, are friends or anything like that. Um, Give us a few tips on like where we can find girlfriends.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I just over the weekend, so the last week, I had a woman message me on Instagram, and she said, I can't remember how she started the message, but she said, "Oh, we're neighbors. I live in Oak Ridge, which is the community just right next door to mine,
Hmm.
and I live in small town North Carolina, and so there's not a whole lot of women who are in the same industry as me, and also." I am in the minority when it comes to political views here. So I have found it tricky to make friends. And so
Sure.
she reached out to me and she's like, we're neighbors. And I checked out her Instagram profile. She's in the similar industry as mine. And I could tell we were on the same wavelength with our political views. And I immediately responded and I said, do you want to go have lunch with me? I'm totally vaccinated.
Hmm.
Let's go. And then I immediately, as soon as I sent the message, I had that feeling of like, oh my gosh, am I too forward? Is she going to think that I'm too forward? And then I told myself like, if she does, then she's probably not the right friend for me. Like
Sure.
I am forward, I am direct, and I'm an extrovert. And I was, we've all been probably a little bit lonely with COVID happening over the last 18 months or so. So anyway, all that to say, ask people out on dates, ask friends out on
Yeah.
dates. And we ended up having brunch and it was lovely. And I will see her again. We already have plans to go furniture shopping. And also it's the basics. There are some women who can't stand things like bunko or book club or things like that, but find something that you love to do. If you're into needlepoint, then go to meetup.com. There's other needlepoint people. They might not be in your community, but you might have to drive a little bit and find them. Another thing that can work really well is to ask the people in your life to set you up with other women. If your partner or significant other works at an office, ask him or her like, hey, do you know anyone who might want to be friends with me, who shares the same interests? Because I've met men before who share similar interests as my husband, and I'm like, you should meet my husband. Like, you guys would really get along. And
Right.
it's really about being proactive and not waiting for these kind of relationships to fall into your lap. It takes work. It's a lot like
It
dating,
does.
to be honest.
Yes, yes. And you brought up Meetup, and I think that that's a
Hmm.
great tool. It was all virtual during 2020 because I went on there. But I've definitely, there's like hiking. I love hiking. I love camping. And so they've got trips on there and you can meet a bunch of women. And they also do, let's say you like hiking too, they'll have
Hmm.
trips going to national parks. And that sounds amazing to me. So I
Yeah.
would, and there you'd be there with a couple of days with several women, who knows how many, and meeting a bunch of women. So I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah. Also, I mean, there's even specific dog groups on Meetup. Like if you have a corgi and you're super into corgis, I guarantee there's a dog group of corgis, like at least within 100 miles for
Right.
you.
Of course, for sure.
Hmm.
All right. So there's something else that I think was really pivotal in your book, and that was about women asking for what they want. And so I need, like, please let's talk about this because I feel like we don't speak up enough. We don't ask for what we want enough or ever.
Right.
And let's dissect that a little bit.
Well, the reason that I wrote the chapter was because I felt like we're raised, and when I say this, please know I'm speaking generally here. Not everybody was raised the same. There's lots of nuance in this conversation. But generally speaking, we are raised to be selfless, to be accommodating, to put everyone else's needs before ours, and to make sure that everybody else is comfortable before we are. And asking for what you want definitely falls into that. And we tend to, take a back seat when it comes to things like asking for a raise, asking for a promotion, sending our food back when it's not right, asking for what we want with our partners when it comes to sex and intimacy. And I hear so many women say, I don't, when it seems very obvious that they need to have a hard conversation or set a boundary, that they say, well, I don't like conflict. And my response to that is, nobody likes conflict. And if they do, quite frankly, they're an a-hole, and you shouldn't want to hang out with them. No one likes conflict. And I feel like we need to reframe that into calling it what it is. And that is a hard, uncomfortable conversation. I don't like having them, and I do this for a living. It just is part of human nature. And so that's my first ask is reframe it into a hard conversation. It's not conflict. It's a talk. And also, I ask women too, think about how you were raised, and most of the time, but sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not explicitly told to us, don't ask for everything you want, only ask for the bare minimum to get what you need. But it's implied. And we receive that messaging in socialization. So I ask women just to think about that. What was modeled for you? Did your mother or grandmother or the women in your life ask for everything that they want? Were they bold with their requests? Did you know what their deepest desires were? Elizabeth Gilbert tells this story of a woman who grew up and apparently the children in this family never knew that their mom was socking cash away for 30 years in a coffee can. And then when all the kids were grown and out of the house, the mom left her husband and went on some adventure, hiking or something. I don't know what it was that she did. And the children never knew ever that their mom had any hobbies or desires or wishes in their life. And that's an example, I think, of so many women who don't make their desires known or wait 30 years. And maybe sometimes it's a financial issue. You might need to sock money away in a coffee can, but I'm kind of taking the long way here to say that I just want women to start thinking about it. No, I don't expect you to run out of the gate and start asking for everything you want today, but just start thinking about, how were you raised? What do you need to unpack in terms of what you learned, what it meant to be a quote unquote good woman? What did that look like?
I hate that word, good.
But we all probably have a list. I'm curious what yours is. Why? Tell me why that gets a reaction.
The word good, because it's for me, it's you need to obey, you need to do this, you need to be good, you need to be quiet, you need to be humble, no, not too loud, don't make anyone mad, just do what you're told. I mean, I was definitely taught that as a kid, for sure. Just don't stop. Even
make a scene.
Do you know that a few years ago, so my dad was in the hospital and he had to have surgery, and I came in one day, it was around 11 o'clock in the morning, me and my mom visiting him, and he was slightly slumped over and on the bed, and he had pulled off his nasal cannula, and he looked bad. So I actually had my own pulse ox, which tests the oxygen in your blood. I put that on him. It was 87. I put the nasal cannula. I couldn't find a mask. I put it on higher. I woke him up. I went out and I'm like, I need respiratory in here. I mean, I don't even work there, but I'm calling for respiratory. My mom's like, shh, God, don't stop. I'm like, Mom, what?
Oh my gosh.
Kidding? Don't make trouble. Don't make trouble. My mother's telling me this. Don't make trouble. I'm trying to save his life right here. I am going to be as loud as I could. And let me tell you, that whole his entire admission to that hospital, it was me being as fierce and as loud as I could be because I saw so many things wrong. And I even stayed there overnight because I didn't trust the nursing staff. I just didn't trust anyone anymore. And so even to this day, my mother's like, shh, don't, what are you doing? Don't just, and I'm like, I'm yelling respiratory and I'm running, trying to find a nurse. There was nobody. It was like a Sunday. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But
and your mom, I mean, I make up that your mom was embarrassed, having her own feelings about it.
Yeah.
But it was a serious situation.
Yeah, totally.
That's incredible that conditioning runs so deep.
And I was like, oh no. I mean, trust me that I would have been very, growing up, very quiet, very shy, but I bust through those. And I mean, it took me like into my mid 30s at least, but I'd say in the past 5 years, I have owned my voice more than I ever have. And I friggin' love it.
So I love this conversation. And I didn't mean to ask you a coaching question before. I know I don't like to coach without permission, but I love this conversation. And so I'm curious, I'm turning the tables on you, Margaret. Like, I'm curious. I want to know what do you think, if you could sort of narrow it down, what do you think is the thing that helped you the most in learning how to not just find your voice, but use it and take action around it?
Because I got angry about it. I got angry because, several times would pass when I didn't speak up, and then I'd be like, shit, why did you do that? No, next time, fuck that. You're speaking up, like talking to myself. And then I'd be on the verge of like, I want to say something. And then there was a part of me that was like, no, don't say anything. And then I'm like, no, fuck that. And then once I did it, and then it just started getting easier and easier and easier. It was just me, just kind of really just being like, no, you're going to say something right now. Mm-hmm. And now I love that. I can't even shut up.
You're making up for lost time.
Definitely.
That's how I feel too. Well, I thank you for sharing that. And you bring up such a great point in that. So I call that the dampening of the human spirit. When we don't speak up, when we walk away from a conversation or a meeting at work or something where we didn't say anything, and we keep thinking about it, that does something. And then when we are ready, I feel like everyone has a different pain tolerance. You're not wrong if you spend years in that place. You'll reach the point where you can't take it anymore, and you do start taking action, whether it's speaking up or setting a boundary or whatever it is. And that's how you build self-confidence around this is to take action and then realize on the other side that you're okay. Like, it may not have worked out. Maybe you finally ask for a raise at work and they say no, or you have a hard conversation with your partner and then you get an argument and you realize that maybe the relationship needs to end. Like, those are very real scenarios that happen to people every single day. I'm not saying that when you ask for everything that you want, you're going to get it. The point is that you're standing up for yourself. You are validating to yourself your worth. And you're building self-confidence along the way, because that's how it works. It is to actually take action and find the evidence that you are going to be okay on the other end. You're not going to die. And that's how you start to trust yourself as well. Yes, definitely.
I mean, that's definitely how it started with me. I mean, and now if, I'll give you a quick example. Like it was during COVID. I had bought this expensive equipment from Best Buy, and then I went to return it, but it was after their 2-week policy. And I was like, and they were like, nope. And I went to the store and they're like, nope, sorry, you can't. It's two weeks. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this piece of camera equipment then? They were like, no, sorry. So what did I do? And then I even called online, over the phone, and they were like, no, sorry. So I went onto LinkedIn. I found the CEO of Best Buy. I emailed them. I emailed 3 people. And so today I will talk, when my dad was in the hospital that time, and they were arguing with me that he was ready to leave the ICU to go to a regular floor. And I could see that he was still in respiratory distress. And I was like, no, he's not leaving, actually. Mm-hmm. And I was speaking to the resident, And I said, well, I'm going to speak to your attending. And if I don't get anywhere with your attending, I will speak to the administration of this hospital. And I will speak to the head of this ICU because my father's not leaving this floor. And that's all there is to it. And he pissed me off because he's like, well, we don't allow family to dictate, what we do. And I said,
really?
well, I said,
did they know that you were a doctor?
I'm an NP. And I was like, I've been an NP for over 20 years. So, and this guy's whatever, he's just started practicing medicine probably like a year ago or two. And so he didn't say anything. And then the attending came. And then my father did not leave that ICU. And then the next day when I was in there and they were like, and he did look better. He was like, they actually asked me, the attending, is it okay if your father goes to a different floor today? And I said, yes.
Wow.
It's fine now. It's fine today. Yeah. Wow. I will go to the head of anyone and talk to them. Like that is how this went from me being so shy and not speaking up to like, I will speak to anybody. Give me the head of anything and I will talk to them.
Yeah. That is what I call like inserting yourself in it. And I had a similar experience advocating for one of my children who has special needs, and I wasn't getting where I wanted with the principal. And I am like, okay, who's her boss? And I figured it out and then had a very uncomfortable meeting with the principal and her boss. And it took everything. I'm sure like my chest was all flushed and I was so nervous, and it took everything that I had just to sit there and be professional. And I was so nervous, and it was a 10-minute meeting and it was fine. And I got what I wanted, and my son finally felt safe. And it's interesting how for a lot of us, it might take your father, crashing in the hospital, or your child with special needs needing the help, and like you're just terrified and afraid of being judged and afraid of causing a scene. And I just want to circle back and say, like, this is the stuff that we need to unpack either at the same time that you're asserting yourself and inserting yourself into these conversations, because we can't just, I feel like in my work, I can't just keep telling women and like rah from the sidelines and tell you to go for it and tell you girl power, when this conditioning runs so deep. And like, this is where we need to start, is to unpack and unlearn the conditioning and socialization that the vast majority of us have received. Like we all drank the same Kool-Aid because it was the only beverage that was offered. Like that was it. And this isn't to blame or shame anyone. It's not to blame and shame our parents. It's not to blame or shame men. It's just the culture that was there. And now it's up to us to start to change things.
Yeah. And find our voices. And I mean, it was not overnight. This was not an overnight thing by any means.
Same.
And it does take time, but it's just that little step, like one little thing. What can you say? And yeah, it's definitely worked in my favor.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if this was your experience, but in my experience, when I have those moments like you had at the hospital and somebody does finally listen, that it's sort of like, it fills up your power pack, if you will. Like, I don't know if that's a great metaphor, but it just, and then you're like, oh, okay. I am visible. I do have something to say, and it's important. And again, it's building that confidence, like understanding that you are competent, that you do understand what's best for your father. You do understand what's best for your child. You do understand what's best for you. And it sort of like makes these little deposits, and that builds steam and momentum.
Exactly. And then every time you do it, you just get like stronger and stronger, and then you become unstoppable.
Exactly. Like, watch out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree. I get you and I both fired up about this conversation.
Oh.
I love it.
Well, you know what? It also is something where I get really fired up when it comes to medical injustices that I see all the time, and how my patients have been sort of neglected for decades when it comes to the healthcare. That's the reason why it gets me so amped up to just talk about the things that I love. And same for you too. I mean, I see it every day, and I get fired up every day because of what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And hear from patients or women that have been suffering for a long time. Things like that, like, really make me extremely passionate about helping women.
Yes. I'm dealing with that right now. I mean, it's a much smaller thing than, like than your example with your father, but I had an appointment with an NP because my doctor was booked for months and months, and like trying to figure out why I'm so tired. And again, I'm 46. Like I have a feeling it's something that has to do with my hormones. And so I foolishly just assumed that when she sent out for my labs that they were going to test not just my cholesterol and those types of things, but my hormones. Like I just assumed that she would,
Yes.
and they didn't. Like I saw the panel up in the portal, and I'm like, where is it?
Yeah,
and I
they
called
test for nothing.
And I just was like, and I'm having this conversation, and the other nurse was like, well, she wants you to come back in. And I'm like, no, I talked to her about it when I was there. I'm not going to pay. My insurance is crap. I'm not going to pay for another appointment to have the same conversation just so she can check the box and check all of my hormones. Like I'm going around and around, and I can tell that the nurse was kind of nervous because I was being assertive, and I'm still kind. Like I'm not a jerk. There's a difference. Right. There's a difference. And I know she's just trying to do her job, but it's, even probably 10, 15 years ago, I would have just said, okay. And I would have paid another $150 to go have the same conversation,
right,
to have more paperwork so she could check the box to check all my hormones.
Did she do it? What happened?
We compromised, and she's like, I'm going to talk to her, and because I'm going to go back in 6 weeks, and I'm going to call, and I have it on my calendar to call back, because she's like, just go through another menstrual cycle, and we'll see what happens. And yeah, because she wants me to be like more symptoms with perimenopause before she checks my hormones, and I'm like, absolutely not. Like, no.
I can't with this conversation with that.
I figured you would appreciate that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it boils my blood. It does.
It feels like a little bit of a power struggle. And I got that impression from her a little bit when I was there. We're also very intuitive. I think that many women also don't give ourselves enough credit for how intuitive we are. I got that vibe a little bit from her. And so I just am trusting my instincts and I think this is a little bit of a power play, and she wants to be right. And yeah, I'm not having it.
No, don't.
Check my damn hormones.
Actually, I would love to, I could even give you a list of some things that they need to check.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe some people who are listening would like that same list.
Oh, fatigue is like, who doesn't have it these days?
Right. Yeah. And it also doesn't make any sense. Like I'm getting enough sleep. I'm getting the right kind of exercise. I'm eating right. Yeah. I'm not super stressed. It doesn't make sense. Something's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I'm glad you went in to figure it out. She may or may not know what to do for you.
Right. That's true. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
But, all right. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, because you talk about this, and I think this is so key also for women who maybe not take any time for pleasure in their life.
Right.
So let's talk about why and what we can do about it.
Well, I took a deep breath when you asked that, because it's also a personal little project over here. And I realized it before I started writing the book. I hired a new therapist, and in the very first session, she's getting to know me and asking a lot of just like history questions. And she's like, "What do you do for fun?" And I was stumped. I was totally stumped. And I was embarrassed even. And I said, "Oh crap." Like, oops, I forgot something.
Right.
And I was working a lot. My husband had left his job to be the stay-at-home parent. And I realized that I wasn't doing anything other than caring for my 47 houseplants, which is a little out of control, for pleasure. And this goes beyond sex. Like sex is definitely a conversation, and it is part of the chapter, but just what are we doing? I have a colleague, Susan Hyatt, that she says pleasure saves lives. Like it's her whole thing. And like, what are we doing for fun? I think that, I saw a quick video where a woman was saying that she remembers her parents telling her that being an adult was so hard. And, be a kid as long as you can. Like, don't try to be a grown up, because being a grown up is no fun. And anyway, it was just an interesting conversation of, I know, right? And the woman said, I remember this, and I don't want to tell my children the same thing. Like, being an adult can be really fun. And it's true. I think that, like, do you need to play Play-Doh and that kind of stuff with your kids? It's not for everyone. I despise crafts. Like, it's not my favorite. But I mean, even things like, I wasn't playing tennis all that often, and I love to play tennis. It's a game. It's playtime for adults is, to me, what tennis is.
Yeah.
And just things like that. And even just, playing with my dog, and just small, it doesn't have to be these elaborate things. But my invitation to anyone listening to this is really sit down and think about what you do for fun. Do you love dancing? Do you love creating new recipes? It can be really anything that you find actual pleasure in. It is delightful to you. What are those things?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking the listener. I'm asking anyone who's listening to think about what are those things, because I think it can quickly go away, and it's sneaky, because it happened to me. I didn't even realize that I wasn't having a whole lot of pleasure in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you say pleasure, you're also talking about like on your own, alone, or you're talking about like going out with your friends, or
yes,
going on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Anything.
Yeah. And vacation, like, let's talk about that for a second. I think anyone who's a parent knows that a lot of times vacations with children is just parenting in another location. It's a trip. Like, I call it a trip. What is a true vacation for you? Like, what is an absolutely true vacation for you? What does that look like? Because some people like adventures and doing lots of, snorkeling and bike riding and all those things. Some people don't want to do anything. They just want to sit on the beach or in the hotel room on the mountain and just read. And it's
right.
I want people to think about it, and also not judge themselves for what they categorize as pleasure for themselves.
Yes. So were you able to find things?
Yes. I started playing tennis more. I started, and it's funny, like the whole plant thing, like I got a little more serious about it, like just propagating, and I let some plants go that I didn't really like anymore. And I just was keeping them alive out of just sheer stubbornness. So I made it a bit of a priority. And also my husband and I got my roller skates back out. I used to play roller derby. And I retired, and I hadn't just skated for fun. Like, it was always training and conditioning. And so my husband bought another skateboard, and my daughter has a skateboard. And so, yeah, there's a few things that I implemented. Badminton, trying to think what else. I also really love decorating my home, but I don't like crafts. I don't like to upcycle. I have before, not my favorite, but yeah, there's a lot of things.
Good. Yeah. I think that I think that many women get into, like, they just get stuck because it's like the monotonous, like, daily chores and, just keeping up the household and the kids. I'm not saying that the kids are not fun if they're doing fun things with them, but sometimes they just maybe get into a little bit of a rut and
the minutia,
of everyday life. And so, pleasure.
One of the other things that I did was, talking about decorating our home. I work from home, which I know a lot of people who aren't entrepreneurs now are working from home. And my home office had always been just fine. It'd been okay. And I finally decided, I looked around this room and said, you know what? I am going to make this room exactly how I want it. I'm not going to take into my husband's opinion. Like, I don't care. And I hired someone to help me put wallpaper up on one wall. The other wall is a gallery wall. And I have tons of plants in here. It's exactly, I bought a really nice office chair because I sit here for so many hours.
Right.
So I did all these things. Like, I'm still looking for lamps that I want. And I did all these things that just were all up to me. And it was like I said, delightful. I was delighted. Society6.com is a really great website for art, and they pay artists. I got a ton of prints that I love, and yeah, I love it.
Oh,
And
so
everyone who sees
great.
it on Instagram and they're like, oh my God, that office, like everyone wants to see more pictures, and
Oh, I have to check it out.
it's amazing. Yeah. I'm actually going to do another office tour. I'm on TikTok and I'll do it
Okay.
over there too, but there's one on Instagram too.
I just did the same thing. You should have seen my before and after. It's on Instagram. Oh, the before was just like, it was like a dumping ground. It was like kind of a guest room. And then I bought a small desk, which I never used. And I'm like, oh no, I want my office back. So this furniture was all in my storage room. And so I just got it out. I had this room painted and I love it in here now. That's where I'm sitting right
Yeah.
now. I love it. It's got such great energy.
Exactly. And it's your physical environment matters so much. I think a lot of us maybe realized that for the first time last year when we were all stuck at home.
Yep.
And I know that decorating can be very expensive, but that's one of the beauty of social media and the internet now. There's so many ways to decorate on a budget and to,
Totally.
upcycle furniture that you already have. And it's amazing how much happier I feel. And like you said, the energy completely can shift when you change a room. And also one of the things I decided, you'll appreciate this with your desk that you didn't like. I asked myself, okay, what does like a boss lady have and do in her life? One of the things I decided is that she has a bigger desk because I have ADHD and I have very organized clutter piles that work for me.
Right.
And I need a lot of space to put them on. And so I got a much bigger desk. It's like an L shape. And I also started getting weekly blowouts for my hair.
Oh, I love
And
it. Yeah.
there's a woman she's a fellow mom that lives by me, and she's not a licensed cosmetologist, but she can do a blowout really amazing, and she doesn't charge me a whole lot, and I get to hang out with her every other week, sometimes every week, and my hair looks amazing for video, and I'm so much happier. That gives me so much pleasure.
Yes. And saves time, and it's just enjoyable. And yeah, washing your hair and having to blow it out yourself is very time consuming and a pain in the neck.
Exactly. And it's very expensive to go to a salon. And so I just asked around. I'm in like a mom's group on Facebook, and I said, hey, is there anyone who does great blowouts who'd want to hang out with me for 30 minutes a week? Of course, I'll pay you.
Right.
I'll even bring my hair dryer if you need me to. And I found someone.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah. I can't wait to see your before and after pics on Instagram.
I'm so bad at doing before. I don't even know if I had any, but it was pretty much just the walls were tan. It's a bonus room. So it's a combination guest room and office. It's large. And it was just completely blank. The walls were like this awful, like 90s era tan. I completely redid it.
I just started following you. I will.
So if you scroll down, there's a reel where there's a picture of a pair of eyes and it says aggressive. That's one of the posters, the pictures that I have. So it's only 30 seconds. I'm going to do a longer one where I show the rest of the room.
Oh, I'm just seeing the wall. I like that.
It took a long time to gather all that art and pick it. And Society6 has really great sales every once in a while. They'll do like a 30% off. And I just order a bunch of it and it's been fun.
Oh, wow. Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm just seeing the rest of it. I love it.
The wallpaper.
I love it. The wallpaper just makes everything pop.
I was not about to do that wallpaper by myself. So again, I found a local lady that did it. $200. She put up all the wallpaper and she helped me organize that gallery wall. Cause I'm not great at decorating. I'm really not. I can pick stuff out, but laying it, I'm not very good with like spatial type of things. So I need help. So I found a local lady who was just building her business and she helped. It looks great.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, okay. So any last things, anything that you really like, any a point or two that you really need to get across?
I think just, you mentioned in the very beginning of our conversation how each chapter has the unlearning process that I take people through. And I just want to point people to that because, again, it's not about, here's what you need to do. You need to start asking for everything you want and build your self-confidence and listen to your intuition. It's like, whoa, calm down.
Right.
But it's a lot. It can be a lot. And I just want people to start with, my friend Elizabeth D'Alto asks such a great question. And I ask this repeatedly throughout the book is, what's your conditioning versus what is your truth? That's what I want to leave people with is what is your truth telling you? And a lot of times that butts up against what your conditioning is. And and for anybody who's interested in the book, there's a free workbook that we made because I ask over 250 questions in the book, to the reader. And so we created a workbook. It's free for people to download if they want to do that. And then I'm also hosting a free book club that starts in September. So if you go to AndreaOwen.com/noise, everything is there.
AndreaOwen.com/noise. Okay. And there's what did you say? A free
workbook.
Okay.
And free book club that starts in September.
Cool. Just writing that down. Everything will be in the show notes. And where else can we find you?
I like to hang out on Instagram. I'm at Hey Andrea Owen over there. And if anyone else is on TikTok, I find that app so wildly entertaining and fun. I'm over there on the same handle, Hey Andrea Owen.
Oh, okay. Great. I am not on TikTok, but I am on Instagram only. I love that space. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. TikTok is moving fast. TikTok's been very interesting because it's made a shift where for a long time it was just, teenagers doing dances and which it still is. There's lots of different subcultures over there and mental health is a big one over there. There's lots of probably unqualified people, as there is on Instagram.
Sure.
Who are giving advice, but I know it's been helpful for a lot of people to find their communities.
Yeah, definitely TikTok. It's huge. It's huge.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's growing.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much. This was such a fun and enlightening conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the audience. And I look forward to connecting in the future and would love to have you back.
Likewise. Thank you so much. I can't wait for you to come on my show and share your wisdom. And thank you everyone for listening. I always so appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Bye.
I am so hoping that by the end of this episode, you have just started to slowly cultivate how to start asking for what you want and really finding your voice. You know what? For me, it was not an overnight thing. It took years. But you know what? You just need to start and you need to have small baby steps. And then one day, you're just going to go to the CEO of any friggin' company and you're going to tell them where to go. All right. To learn more about Andrea and to learn all about her book and everything, head on over to margaretromero.com/episode 179. And if you have been loving these conversations, head on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. Thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you all next week. Bye for now.